This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello, and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today we're going to be talking through one of our technical episodes, and specifically targeting the buy, develop, rent, refinance strategy and how that has been a bit of a revolution over the last 5 years specifically, what it is and why it is now. Now, as always on my technical episodes, I've got my business partner and co-host, Tim. Hi,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we start, if you like what you hear today, please do like and subscribe. It's free to do so and helps to promote the podcast. There's also some other episodes that are relevant to today because we're not going to be talking about them in any great detail. I think episode 9 was tendering and how to put together good tenders. Number 11 was budgeting. Number 13 was construction phase management. There was another one about build phases. And then we did one which was episode 32, which is more recent, on project management.
Yes.
So those are all really good.
Yeah, the build better
technical
episodes,
develop based episodes. So if you're interested in those, go and see those. And an honourable mention here to BRRR. That's been the key words for a long period of time. We're going
as in like a rest in peace. We're going to say
RIP to the BRRR strategy. An honourable mention. You served us well, and you're no longer
don't quite do enough for us anymore. You
no. So, which brings us on to exactly. So rest in peace, the BRRR strategy, and hello to the BDRR revolution. So Tim, what is BDRR?
Well, you just said it before, didn't you? So buy, develop, rent, refinance is what it stands for. But ultimately, what it means is
only one letter difference, though.
One letter difference is very clever, I think, just to switch them out. But basically, what you're doing, we're no longer doing your cosmetic refurbishments where you're basically just redecorating and putting a new kitchen in or whatever.
Yep.
We're now developing that we're changing the use generally. So, when you talk about this, it could be a terraced house to a HMO conversion, which is like a C4, which is below 6 occupants, or it could be a large house, which is a C3 use class, to a large HMO, which is sui generis, above 7 occupants, or it could be conversion of, say, a commercial property into a block of flats.
Yep.
And things like that. So you're developing. We're talking about small scale development here specifically, but you're changing the use. So you're adding value. Sometimes in different ways. So you could be adding value through the planning uplift by getting planning approval, and then through the actual build development process. So, there's a bit more work involved. There's a bit more compliance, regulation, all those sort of things than your simple BRRR rest in peace
and there's
strategy.
There's two. I'm just going to talk about. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but development in its own right, because that's the key change, isn't it?
Yeah.
So development, if you're looking at it purely from a planning perspective, which is where the word is most well documented, development is either material operations, normally affecting the exterior of a building, or change of use.
Yes.
Right? So either of those two things are classed as development under planning. So what the best strategies are today is to do those things, right? To change something in the property to such a degree that you are adding significant value through the change, not just the refurbishment.
Yeah, and sometimes the change, if you're converting from a house to a good quality HMO, you're not just changing what the end product is, but it's also the valuation method changes, because it's a commercial product at that point. It's not just your typical, family home or something like that.
I would argue that like 5-6 years ago, that because we've had such significant change in regulation as well, that the BRRR method of just refurbishment could have been applied to some of these practices, specifically HMO, where it was fire doors that were required, and potentially commercial conversions before the Class MA profiles came out, because, again, there wasn't as highly regulated new creation of spaces from a fire and a regulatory point of view, as an example. And so that the fundamental change is why it's now develop, not refurbish, in my opinion, because I think they're different, right?
Yeah, there's a good point you make there. It's also about regulation. So when you change a use, you sort of have to do heavier works as it is, because you need to meet generally the building regulations for that new change of use. So it can add in, build costs are higher, and because you're adding in build costs, you need to add a decent amount of value at the back end. So that forms part of it as well.
Yeah, and fire separation is one of them, right? So like that has increased significantly,
and say noise,
especially since the Grenfell issues,
and noise and acoustic requirements and fire requirements and all those sort of things can.
And they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
The typical example is the HMO conversion. So originally, when I lived in a HMO, it was you just needed a lock.
Yeah.
Right.
Lock on the bedroom door.
There was no space. There was no sizes. There was no space standards. So a room was a room. Yeah. So you didn't have to have minimum rooms. You didn't have to worry about kitchen diner sizes. You didn't have to worry about separate communal space sizes. It was just a case of put some locks on the doors and charge and rent a room. Right. Now, your rooms have to meet space standards. They have to, which normally means you're moving walls. Yeah. Your kitchen diner has to be a certain size again. If you're sharing, if not, then you have to provide different communal spaces, which can reduce the profitability of the property. You're making all of these fundamental decisions, which are going to add to the value of your refurbishment.
Yeah, actually, when you're doing the conversion, the bulk of the costs are in the compliance and the regulatory stuff. Yeah. And then to get it to a nicer spec, usually the extra cost, the finishing, the finished product, say the paint colors and the furnishings and all those sort of things, it's very minor percentage.
Yeah.
And obviously if you top it off with those things at the end to get a really nice product, you can really add some extra value as well.
And when we were first looking at the HMO market, when I was first reading things like Property Magic and stuff like that, we're talking 10 years ago, let's say 2016.
Yeah.
The average room cost was sub 10K to get a good quality, nice HMO with an ensuite room. Now we're at 20 plus.
No, we've averaged, I was actually looking at yesterday that the average conversion per room that we've done is around about £23,000 per room across 40 something HMO developments.
Yeah.
Even 5 years ago, it was more towards the 20-ish mark. So it's gradually creeping up, even for lots of reasons. Big labor shortage in this country. Material prices obviously went up a huge amount a few years ago, and they're still going up. So there's all those sort of things as well.
At a fundamental level, though, you wouldn't need all of those things if it wasn't for the regulation.
Yeah.
So the regulation plus the application.
And the licensing requirements as well.
And the licensing requirements, right? So this is why these things, and that's only at a small HMO, never mind a big HMO where you need different fire separation treatment for different floors, kitchens on different floors, because you're not allowed to walk more than 2 flights.
So there's an extra level of complexity with the development. There's an extra level of complexity with getting the planning permission in place if required as well.
Yeah, same with flats as well. The acoustic requirement on the flats is much bigger. The ventilation is much stronger. The heating is much stronger. Obviously, you've got energy efficiencies. Do you want to mention the utilities part that we just had a massive?
Yes, it's a fair point actually. So utility, new utility connection costs April of this year in 2025 went up across the board for, I think there's a lot of political reasons really. The government and voters giving utility companies a hard time about maintaining the infrastructure and stuff like that. So they basically said, okay, fine, up yours. You privatized it years ago, Mr. Government. So we're just going to put our prices up if you want us to do X sort of thing. So so we had one project that we're converting into a mill into 10 high-end flats. The original quote pre-April, I think it was the end of last year, maybe December or something, it was like £33,000 or something like that. And the new quote after April, now that we're on site and developing, is it's ended up being over £80,000.
Yeah, it's gone from 3.3 grand a flat to 8 point something grand a flat just for the utility connection.
Yeah,
which is why it is this is development though, because it is significantly more challenging to do these types of development.
Yeah, so the barrier to entry is much higher. Again, if you're going to enter this space, because of those barriers to entry and the difficulty involved and the challenges that come up, there is a bit less competition as well.
Yeah, so even though the challenges are harder, this creates this environment, which really leads us on to the next question, which is why is now the time to achieve that any sort of financial freedom through BDRR?
Yeah, so I think, firstly, just to achieve financial freedom, what does it mean? You want time freedom, but also security.
Yep.
So if you think we're in a very disruptive time at the moment with especially AI and things like that, it's a little bit unknown how that's going to change, everyone in the future. Some people say every job's going to be lost. Some just say, some are at risk, some are already at risk, and all these sort of things. So, if you need to pivot career or business or whatever, if you've got that portfolio in the background that's, a good cash flowing portfolio, that gives you a certain layer of security, at any time. It's just good to be there in the background, isn't it, for that purpose?
But the key point is that you said before is because of this regulatory environment, the competition is less.
Yes. Yeah. So if you, and I don't know the percentages exactly, but if you went back to even 15, 20 years ago on the percentage of, housing that was getting done by what you call SME developers, small, medium enterprise developers, it was much higher than it is now.
Oh, it's something ridiculous, like 65% less or something like that.
Yeah. So if you think a lot of it, there's quite a few people on the very basic level that are doing, we'd say, the BRRR methodology, because it just needs a cosmetic refurbishment.
And there's a reason that doesn't really add value anymore.
Yeah, and that doesn't add necessarily a lot of value for the reasons we've said.
And because, and in my opinion, because it doesn't add value because of the cost of doing business right now is so high.
Yes.
That your refurbishment isn't adding enough value to swallow that cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to think about stamp duty, material costs, labor costs, lending costs are massively high at the moment. So if all you're doing is putting in a kitchen and a bathroom, which is your traditional, your top end refurb type scenario, and then some painting, maybe some furniture, you're not really moving the dial enough, are you, to actually get enough value
uplift. Yeah, exactly.
Compared to your fixed costs. Even your standing charges.
So the way we define the BDRR projects are a build value between, say, 70 grand and £700,000 or £800,000, something like that.
At the landlord level,
That's the niche level. You get above that, you got bigger developers or bigger companies that you're competing with, with decent teams, below that. Like you said, it's hard to add value, but, someone that's just a general handyman or whatever can do those sort of projects. So the niche is in between that for these projects. So the other thing I was going to say as well is obviously there's big disruption with AI and things like that, but predominantly people always need a place to live. We've got a shortage of housing and accommodation generally. So unless the population massively decreases, people always need a place to live. So even with that disruption,
food, heat, and shelter, isn't it? The tier one of what you need to survive.
Yeah.
So we're targeting the shelter environment. So if you're in one of those three industries, food, heat, and shelter, and you're disrupting it or you're doing something of good quality, tends to be you're going to be okay, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you're doing anything which is very bottom end service driven, if your job can be replaced by a robot.
Basically lack of competition, huge disruption with AI in the job market and everything, there's some key reasons to do it. And that by doing it now, you either provide security for you and your family, or you can create some time freedom for yourself, for your financial freedom.
There are some rules regarding this.
Yeah.
So I think you've come up with seven.
Seems a lot. Seven key rules.
Yeah.
5 doesn't cut it.
5 doesn't cut it. You have to tell our friend Simon this, because Simon Ducci likes 5s. He likes to do 5 golden rules for things. So you're going to do 7.
And his were golden. Mine are just the key rules.
7 key rules. Not quite golden, but okay. It's 7 silver rules for BDRR.
And I'll give a bit of a plug here because I've printed out the bit of the chapter extract from our upcoming book as well. For that. So right.
So it's a good point. We are putting this into a book format so you can take it away. So buy, develop, rent, refinance, rent. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's financial freedom, isn't it? And the BDRR revolution basically is what you need to look out for later this year. Right. So key rule number 1, you have to know your numbers. You have to get them right. So one of the key problems we see with this space or these sort of developments is getting the purchase price wrong, or getting the build refurb costs, either underestimating it or just getting it wrong, and other numbers wrong, because that can really affect the deal. You might think it's a good deal, but it's not a good deal because your numbers are wrong. And then you need, obviously, to get the numbers right, you need to be confident and have the teams that can back up those numbers as well. Because if your building refurbishment is 200 grand in the budget, but you don't know the builders that can achieve those sort of numbers or a team that can deliver it, it's still wrong, even if someone else can achieve it. So you need to get the teams in place as well.
It's the two classics, isn't it? You buy it too much because you want to get the deal done.
Yeah.
So you overpay, and then your sunk costs on your overpayment are higher because your stamps are higher and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've probably engineered your budget a little bit.
Yeah, don't massage the numbers to get it to work and just go, right, or they want 250 now. I only want to pay 220, so I'm just going to cut my build cost down 30 grand or something.
The way I would look at this is if it's too expensive for you, then either somebody's offered too much and it's not going to go through as a deal, or they're going to lose money, in which case you didn't want that deal in the first place.
Yeah.
So just wait.
Yeah.
Time is your friend.
Yeah, so sometimes someone could offer too much with the numbers wrong, and that might mean the deal might fall through because when the other professionals do the checks and they're doing lending or whatever, they might just go, "Oh, actually, we can't lend on this deal. The numbers don't."
Episode 42 is deal finding. We should talk about
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
Right. Key rule number 2, do not over leverage. So what I mean by that is that there's good debt and bad debt.
Yeah.
Good debt is something that's, going to give you a return. So if you got debt through a mortgage company or a bridging lender or a private investor, and you're going to get a return from that, it's good debt. Consumer credit card debt where you're buying material goods is probably bad debt. But the key is you don't want to over leverage. So if you're borrowing too much money from other private investors, that's at risk. That could be over leveraging. Sometimes too much bridging finance, which I did myself a few years ago, that can be over leveraging. But also when you're flipping the product to say a mortgage product, and your loan to value is too high. So let's say you're topping up everything at 80-85% loan to value, and you're getting commercial valuations. If there's a dip in the market or circumstances change, you could be at risk.
Big percentage-wise, by the way.
Yeah.
To make big changes.
So you need to be really, really careful on that. But if you want to build a portfolio with BDRR, you have to understand how to utilize good debt and also be very, very responsible with it, all of your lenders and paying back as well.
So don't forget 1% change at 500 grand, 50 grand.
Yeah.
Right, on a yield basis.
Yeah.
So you
makes
should
a
be
big
really
difference.
careful. Yeah.
So key rule number 3. So if you're looking at this stuff, you're building it for cash flow. You need tenants, don't you? So who's your tenant? What their profile is, and is there demand for that tenant? So basically invest where demand is strong and where the cash flow is going to be real. So we talk about it in episode number 4.
Yes.
Location.
4, yeah, very early. We probably could revisit that.
Yeah. So if you're looking at, say, a good professional HMO type product at the end, it needs to be an area with good population density, employment, travel links, whether it's tram, train, bus, motorway, shops and minis, all these sort of things,
In the episode 4, we do go into the specifics per strategy type as well.
Yeah,
so it's worth going visiting.
Yeah, and obviously if you're doing flats, you need to make sure there's rental demand for those things, etc., etc. So go back to that episode. Basically, no demand equals no cash flow. No cash flow, you can be in trouble.
Real trouble.
You're in real trouble, aren't you? Basically. So key rule number 3. Key rule number 4, always plan for development headaches. So there's always risk involved with these developments. Things can go wrong. I've seen most of them, not all of them, but on hundreds of projects. So the best thing to do is know that they can go wrong, what they are, and how you can contingency plan for that. That's really, really important. So simple things are, if we're looking at converting old buildings into a different product, there are potential for unforeseen issues that can come up. So you want, cost contingency planning for that, time contingency planning for that, structural issues, lintels, subsidence.
That's a really key one, isn't it? Because
I hear people talk about cost contingency all the time, but time contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you think a 10 flat development C2R is on a 12-month bridging loan, what are you doing? And then you've got to refinance it or sell them. You need to be realistic in your time frames. Your time contingency is really important.
Yeah, a right balanced approach with that as well. So you need realistic timeframes to start with, don't you, for the the build program that's going to happen, how long that should take, how long could it then take if there's some issues that crop up.
Yeah.
So simple one we do with HMOs at the moment actually is like if it's a 5-bed, we allow about 5-week time contingency on top of the contract time we agree with the build contractor. If you're getting bigger, you're 7 or 8 bed, you do 7 or 8 weeks. It's sort of like a pretty good rule of thumb. Because we worked out initially we were doing about a month, and we're like, actually a month's probably not enough, especially for the bigger ones. So just look at those time contingencies, reasonable cash contingency because costs can go up, utility costs, labor, materials, and all those sort of things. Obviously, the big issue you have is contractors either going bust or being unfinancial. You need backup teams in place to deal with those challenges. But anyway, you need a plan for these headaches that could come up and have contingency plans for them. Key rule number 5, liquidity is really important. So as you're building a portfolio, for developments, you need a bit of a cash buffer available for things like that. Simple one we just said before, when the utility costs go up, have you got the cash buffer to deal with things like that, or the contingency?
Because if you're leveraged to the hilt,
and
you're reliant solely on the drawdown process, if you then get a contingency issue, and you bring maybe even you pay for it out of that leverage, your money's going to run out.
Exactly right. So that's a very good example actually of the scenario, and that's why you need
see it.
You need that cash buffer.
We see it all the time.
If you're developing while also having your existing portfolio running, you need a cash buffer for your existing portfolio because things can crop up. Roof needs replacing, boiler needs replacing. Tenants trashing properties that we've had occasionally and stuff like that.
Paying rent for some reason.
People not paying rent, so you're a bit behind on that and all those sort of things. So I think a good thing for like a portfolio cash buffer is maybe 3 to 6 months of operating costs to have.
I'd say 4 would have been good, and then with the new renters reform, I'd say 5 or 6.
And even if it's not necessarily sitting in that account, if you've got it somewhere available if you need it or something like that, that's a very smart thing to do. It's a long game, but it's peace of mind as well. The more cash buffer you have, even if it's not necessarily giving you the return, there's a peace of mind element as well.
You can't and there's an element of don't worry about the return if it's going to pay for your bills for 6 months, right?
So this BDR revolution as well, we're predominantly talking about development, small scale development to keep for cash flow. Obviously you can sell stuff as well, but key rule number 6 is to really think long term, because then you're not affected by the dips in the short term dips in the market and things like that. So really, property is a long-term game at the end of the day. You can make quick profits or you can lose money quickly as well if things don't go well. But if you're thinking long-term, then, you're continually buying. You're not really worrying about market conditions and recessions and pandemics and all those sort of things. You can just keep building it and really have that long-term approach and let time give you the benefit of the capital growth as well. So it's not necessarily trying to time the market, it's time in the market, isn't it? When you
capital growth's annualized.
Right.
So you need to wait. So annualize is measured over years. So 10 years is not a big amount of time in a capital growth environment.
No, I mean, a lot of the property cycles are like 17, 18 years or something like that. So you get a good bit of indication of the market across those periods. But it's buy property and wait in essence rather than wait to buy property. And then the final one, key rule number 7, you need a really good management company in place to keep the cash flow coming in, because if it's not, you can get a really good development done to a nice spec, even let well to start with, but if it's not well managed and looked after, it can deteriorate quickly and maintained. It could be start as a good asset and end up a bit of a liability.
The two key rules should be that you keep your rents in line with the market. And that when a tenant moves into property and moves out of property, it looks the same, other than fair wear and tear, which is only things like use of equipment. So the use of capital equipment like boilers, sinks, that kind of, not huge marks on the walls, needs repainting. That's not wear and tear.
You want to. It's a fair point you say. So if you're doing a HMO, the way that you gauge how well it's maintained is like, if a tenant's viewing that property 2-3 years time and it still looks like the original photos you had 2 or 3 years ago, that's success really at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's good.
So maintaining that financial freedom
and
through the management.
The worst thing you can do is go for the cheapest one possible.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford the staff. I mean, that's literally what it means. You don't have the good quality people to look after your property.
Yeah.
So you've saved yourself 2% in...
Yeah, so initially you plug it into your appraisal and you go, right, that's 8% instead of 12% or whatever, or 8 compared to 10 or 10 compared to 12, whatever it is.
The expected loss would be way more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to factor that in. It's like, if I'm going that cheaper one, the maintenance
10%,
needs to be double, what you factor in and all those sort of things. So that's the 7 golden rules. Sorry, not the golden rules, the 7 key rules.
7 key gold rules. Right. Great. So then just to close this out then, because that's so valuable, just a couple of top tips, 3 maximum of for somebody wanting to use the BDRR method and become a small scale developer. Some top tips from you. And then I'll give one.
So firstly, it always starts at strategy and goals, what you want to achieve, by when and, and all those sort of things. So simple.
So strategy was probably episode 21.
So revisit episode 21 about strategy. But, as an example, if you want to get cash flow profit from property to leave a job in 1 or 2 years time or something, that's, different to achieving a cash flow goal in 5 or 10 years time.
Yep.
Also, you need to consider if the goal's too far a distance away, you don't really take action.
You're not going to be focused on it.
You won't be focused on it. So you need to weigh that up. But definitely like, what you want to achieve and why, and then bring that back to your strategy. But listen to episode 21. And then I think like you've got to, if you're doing these size projects, how are you going to do it? So to give some simple examples, of how you're going to do it. So if you start with, if you've got a lot of time and a lot of expertise and you want to do it all yourself, you can do that. It's a bit risky and stressful and all those sort of things, but you can say source and project manage yourself. There's certain things that you need to outsource, like electrical.
I'd say those two things are absolutely opposites of each other as well. Like you're quite good now, but back in the sourcing the deal and project managing the deal.
Yeah,
they're two separate skills.
Yeah, they're different workflows.
It don't mean you can't do them both, but what it means is you're going to get more fulfillment out of one of those two things, right?
Yeah, and also, you're not necessarily building a pipeline. So if you're sourcing, then you're managing the works. You're going to miss out on deals. You're not building your pipeline to build your portfolio.
And I know people who self-manage at the end as well.
Yeah.
Which is like, well, what are you?
Yeah. Anyway, this is one option. I definitely don't recommend this option, by the way. This is not recommended. So that's one option. The other one is like, we talked about it a bit with Richie Clapson, because he talks about property CEO. But you've got a business, you're developing property, you're the CEO, you're the business owner, and you can build out the team one by one in a way. So you go, right, I need it.
You've stolen my one.
All right, which episode was that?
This was going to be my point, which was be the CEO.
Right, sorry.
That was going to be my point. And Richie was episode 25.
Yeah, so you can revisit that episode.
He's brilliant.
But basically, he is. But basically, you're the head of that business, and you need to build the team that you need to build your BDRR projects, in essence.
Yeah.
So you might have a sourcing agent, you have your solicitors, brokers, your architects, project managers, building contractors, engineers, all these sort of people, and you're building out that team yourself as the head of that business, because you will need a team, to do these projects, basically because it's so difficult to do it yourself and stressful as well. So that's another avenue. And then the third avenue is like, you can use companies who already have that team in place that literally do everything for you. Do you know any good ones of that?
There's one that I think we used to have a sponsor of this podcast called Property Portfolio Building. They were quite good.
Anyway, without the shameless plug, but there's companies that do that, and the benefit, and we talked about it in the episode about project managers as well.
Yeah,
is that if you might be able to bring in either one company like that literally has the whole team, or you bring in a few people that bring a lot of the rest of the team. So project management is a simple one that, because they do a lot of projects, they know a lot of the other contacts.
They might know good architects, exactly. So engaging in a project manager really is a good idea.
Yeah, so even if you're doing that property CEO scenario, maybe your first person is a project manager, and then they bring in like most of the team. You might go, oh, all I need is a solicitor and a broker now. The project manager's bought everyone else. So it all comes down to, how much time you want to include, how much stress you want, and all these sort of things. But I think you need to just not think about these people as a cost, but think about them as an investment.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you need to be efficient with your team and not overpay people, because if you're paying too much to these people, they're too expensive and they're not doing a great job, then they do become a cost, not an investment.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And then, so I picked a slightly different one for my point.
I've still got one more, actually.
Sorry, that'll be four then.
Yeah, we'll come back to yours. And so my next one, and we've touched on it a bit already, is contingency planning is really, really important. So A, you need cost contingency. B, you need time contingency.
Yeah.
And also the things, understanding the things that can go wrong and the risks.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't know what you don't know in a way. So if you haven't done property development before, you need to work with people that have, or learn the things that can go wrong, so then you can plan for them. Yeah. So a simple one we said before, builder goes bust. What's your contingency plan for that? Is to have other builders in place that can come in. Yeah. And only paying that builder for works completed at the time, so you're not overpaying. That limits your risk.
Not paid 50%.
So that's a simple plan to do for something that generally kills a lot of developers and puts them bankrupt or whatever in bad financial situations.
So my point on this is a niche network, right? Because the whole point of the BDRR is it's the development part. And you need to be, if you're going to be the CEO, you need to know enough about your deal sourcing strategy, your deal in terms of your overall strategy, and then how you're going to find those deals, which we talked about. I think it was episode 42, about how to systemize your deal sourcing strategies, and then but then it's knowing enough about the next bit, but not too detailed, to be able to hold your own in conversation and network with the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
So because they're going to know the best people to help you as well. Yeah. So, but if you don't niche it down, so let's say you want to do BDRR and then you go, right, I'm going to do commercial to commercial, I'm going to do commercial to residential, I'm going to do HMO C4, HMO sui generis, I'm going to do all of these things, I'm going to do flips, I'm going to do trading, I'm going to do all of these things. You're just not going to move forwards, because it's too, like the development part of it is too,
well, you need to focus as well, don't you?
It's too big. You need to be really niching it down. So if you're doing flats, if you're doing HMOs, just start somewhere and know enough about it, so you know the planning laws, you know the licensing laws, you know the regulatory environment enough that you can find the right person for you. So when you have that conversation, you know they're right, or you know somebody who can help you to know they're right, which is like the project manager.
So it comes a bit down to education, knowing a decent amount to learn it, so you can oversee it.
Yeah, but about that subject.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like that niche environment.
Yeah,
like if you were to ask me, would you feel comfortable now going away and doing 4 new build properties? I would say absolutely not. If you said, would you be comfortable if Tim wasn't here to go and do a 6-bed HMO? I would say, yeah, probably could do that. Or don't want to.
Yeah,
but probably could. I would feel really comfortable. What about some flats? Yeah, probably. I'd be all right. But because I've learned those niches.
Yeah.
That's only 2 niches. Anything outside of that, no idea.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to know.
And if you niche, you know that the teams you built are suitable for that niche. Yeah. So a simple example you said there is, if you're doing HMO conversions and the build cost is, say, between 100 and 200 grand or whatever, you know all those teams could work within that range. If you then jump up to flat conversions where the build cost is 700k, are they different teams? They're different consultants. They could be different build contractors, all those sort of
things.
Warranties, there's a different layer. In essence, we thought that's why we have this range, because it can be a similar sort of teams. Then you get higher, it does get different again. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
But by niching that helps manage the teams and that environment, really.
Yeah, and maybe at some point we can raise BRRR from the dead, but not in the current markets. No. So yeah, thank you very much, Tim.
Pleasure as always.
Yeah. So BDRR, the Buy, Develop, Rent, Refinance revolution, and how you can apply it to your own financial freedom journey. The important part about it is not to be scared of these things. It's to because if you become knowledgeable and you niche it down, then you'll there are risks, but you can manage those risks.
The upsides of them, and the upside, and that's the thing, is you need to be positive, don't you? Because the upside's there. You don't want to be too scared you're running for the hills, because there are great returns to be made, but you just need to understand the downside and the risks.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Go and look at some of the other episodes that we've discussed today. And thank you once again. And we will catch you on the next one.
Bye. See you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.